And I'm going to share my screen now. I will let you know that I may, as I said earlier, I may turn off my camera if I run low on system resources. But what we're here to talk about today is LibreOffice, which is Office productivity software. I'll give you a little overview, and then we'll talk about each of the parts of the software: Writer, Calc, Impress, some essentials, and then some special features, and as well how to get help. So in an overview, this software is on all WLS computers and VDI sessions. It is a replacement for Office software, mainly because Microsoft changed their licensing setup, and so since we're replacing Office 2010, which is over 10 years old, we weren't able to replace that with a Microsoft product, or with Microsoft Office. So what we found was this alternative. It's open source software, LibreOffice, and there's a few things that if you learn, or if you pick up a few things about it and start to use it more, which I've been doing pretty much since we introduced it, I find that I have to hunt for things occasionally, but it really has at least as much functionality as the Office products that I'd been using, and I was a pretty heavy Excel, Word, and PowerPoint user. I still primarily use PowerPoint, but rather than Impress, but I have found that it converts most of those kinds of documents. All right, so let me go ahead, and if you're looking at my screen, you can see my big tip here. I'm going to go ahead. You'll notice I did not have LibreOffice open. I'm going to open it now, and it opens just like, well, actually, it's a little different than your Microsoft Office products, because rather than opening each module separately, like you would open Word or Excel or PowerPoint, instead of opening those separately, you open LibreOffice all together. It is designed to be very integrated. So you can see that in this single platform, I have access to Writer, Calc, and Impress, and Draw. They actually also include some other programs, math formulas. There's a whole separate module that's about charts and graphs, so you can actually create those separately from your, say, your Excel spreadsheets. Maybe you want to make infographics there. That's the kind of thing you can do and include those charts and graphs. Having said that, one of the things that happens here is that when I want to open files, I can open any of those kinds of files from this single dialog. So I'm going to click my Open Files option and scroll down here to my file that I want to use here. And you can see, hopefully this, I know this is a little bit small, but you can see that rather than have icons for Excel and Word, they're slightly different, but they're really similar. I have a little green icon for my spreadsheet program, a little blue icon for my my writing program, but I have them all saved in the same place. You can save them just as you would in various places that you may be used to saving your documents from Office. But we're going to go ahead. I'm going to start out with this resume document here, and oops, I got the wrong one, but that's okay. It's just a demo. So that file's opening, and it may take a moment or so. And what happens is when you first open any of the LibreOffice programs, any file there, by default, it's set up with sort of what I think of as this sea of buttons, and it can be really hard to find what you want. But when you very first open any file, it comes up with this tip of the day, and it's number 1 of 223. And some of these tips are really great. This one in particular, because if I run this action now, I can use, rather than the standard toolbar, which we're seeing now, I can change it so that it's a tabbed display. And this is a lot more like the ribbons that are in Office. And so it organizes all of those buttons, those tools, into tabs that are that I am much more comfortable with. If I apply this to all of the programs, it's going to have that tab display in Calc and in Draw and etc. I can apply that to all and close this, and I have now File, Home, Insert, Layout, References, Review. This is much more, I'm much more comfortable with this. If you forget and you don't set up the tabs when you very first get in, you do have the option to go back and set them up in the View menu. Now, it's a menu option, and I'm getting a little feedback. I think somebody might need to mute themselves, if you would. There's a couple ways to get there. You can get there from, from here. Excuse me. So you can get there, you want to go to the user interface. So this this hamburger menu option has really common, often used options here. One of them is the user interface. And so it brings up this dialog box so that then you can choose that if you missed it when you first opened the program. I call this my biggest tip because it has made a world of difference in my use of all of these programs. You know, when I first started, I was hunting for the buttons I needed, and I got pretty frustrated. But as soon as I stopped and read that tip, and I've read some other ones that are helpful as well, but that one in particular, I set this up now, and it's been so helpful to me. So in addition to setting up the tab display and this menu of often used options here, you have a couple of other ways and things you'll want to set up. You may want to use this button here to open up the menu bar. This is something you have the option, and there may be some things that if you can't find the button for it, you may be able to find it in one of the menus. This really kind of spells out all of the different options that you have rather than having them in a graphical display. It's in a like, you know, a text format, so you can actually see what all of the options are in text. Some people are more comfortable with this, and so that's why they give you this option. The LibreOffice is actually a very global program, and it is really geared toward creating things that are meant to go online. So there are a lot of options that you might see, or that you might see as add-ins in Google Docs if you're a Google Docs user. You can see that rather than just having extra tools built in, you've got extension options you can add to that and that kind of thing. So all of your menus are here. I generally tend to leave this closed, and then I open it if I need to. You can also from here go to the view menu, and here's that user interface option that we saw in that other menu. So if I click on this again, it'll collapse that menu bar, and I won't have those menus dropping down inadvertently. For every tab that I'm on, and you can see the familiar buttons on the home tab, we've got cut, copy, and paste, some formatting tools. A few things are a little different. Instead of the format painter, you have a clone that works the same way, but all the options are here for alignment and for style, adding style to your documents. There's often for each tab that you're on, you'll see a menu here that gives you those text options that you would see in the if you had the menus open. So these are the menu options in text that you would see on this tab. So there's going to be a similar menu drop down for any of the tabs that I'm on. So if I'm on the insert tab, I see options here. Same with the layout tab. And it just gives me another way to get to things. With any of these productivity programs or pretty much any software that you use, you know that there are multiple ways to do things, and you come up with a way that works for you. And then you can sort of make things work a lot more quickly for your workflow. Some things you have to do the way that it's set out to do, but oftentimes we come up with our particular workflows that work for us. The other thing that you'll see on every one of the tabs, or most of the tabs, is this double arrow. And these will often have context sensitive options. Some of them we'll take a look at in some of the other programs in Calc. There's some really great options there, but depends on, of course, which tab you're on and what you have available to you on the page and what you're creating, what you've selected depends on what shows up here and what is active. So one of the things that I'll mention at this point, this could be a text document, and I actually added some objects to it, just like you could in the in your in your Word document. If I wanted to insert, I could insert a text box, but I can also just type and today is Tuesday. Let's get a little text here. Now I had some underlying data behind there, so I can actually just clear the formatting in and I can just kind of clear that out. Should be able to clear that out. Sorry about that. And I'm not quite sure what's going on there. I have a link in there that I really don't want in there. So let's see if I can clear that out. Always, 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 there's a, there we go. So I can do the formatting just as I would in any other, in Word, whatever. This is so strange. I think I'm on my review. I don't want this here. All right, sorry about this. I must have set up some review option here to have it typing as though I'm not it's not my own document. There is you can see, I'm going to go ahead and I'll start something new, just so that you can see how that works as well. Because there are some interesting options here. I've got an open, but if I go to file, I can start a new document. And if I use this dropdown, as I said, this program is really integrated. I can start a new text document or a spreadsheet or a presentation. Any of these, I can start right from within whatever program I'm working on. So if I want to start a new text document, so I can show you a couple of things. I have an untitled document here. And if I want to, there are some templates. There are not that many templates, but if here's where I'm gonna open my menu bar, and I can actually look at it. If I want to use a new one, there are some templates here down at the bottom, and that'll open a window. You'll see that because we have LibreOffice set up in VDI, it is customizable, but because you have a new session that refreshes every time you shut down and restart, say the next day, any customizations that you make will not carry over. So if you have this installed on your own PC or on a PC outside of a VDI or iGel session, it will save your customizations, but within those sessions, I don't make a lot of customizations because I know that they're going to go away the next day. Part of the reason I brought that up here is because while there are some templates, there are not that many. You can see there are some business letter options. There's resume and a CV and business cards with logos. So there are just a few different templates. You can actually open any of the templates here let's look at them all. So you can get the writer. There are options here for some presentation, the Impress templates. There are just a few different options for spreadsheet templates, but there are not that many. So usually you can use, if you wanted to do labels, you can get an Avery template and upload it, and it'll work in Writer, for instance, if you want to do labels that way. And then you do have to do a little bit of work to make sure that the label is in every cell of the table, but you can go ahead and use that as an organizing device as well. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm just going to open this template, and I have another new document here. It has a space for my logo. This is really intended to be able to do sort of like a mail merge thing. I can use it for that if I want to. So I can use these fields to, in conjunction with a spreadsheet or a database file, so that I could populate that way. But I can also just erase this, and I can put in the data that I need, and then save this as a file and have it be I can then use it as a template. Let me go ahead and put this in here. All right. Okay. You can do mail merge letters with LibreOffice. There are let me see. I haven't done it in particular, but I can give you some more information about how to find help with that. If that's something that you're using a lot, or that you're using, I'll make a note and we'll go ahead and I'll get you some more information about that in the follow-up email. So I can point you in the direction of a mail merge. All right. For any of these options, you can go ahead. This is where you would put a graphic. So I can actually just replace this with what would be with another image. And I can put this in here, or I could put my logo in there. And if I want to insert an image, where's my logo? I can get a, oops. Sorry about this. I lost my logo. I have a footer graphic. Let's see if I stick this in here. It's going to put, I get my letterhead all across the top. I have that as a graphic. If I want to, one of the things I can do is actually work on the image here. So I have some options for it, and I can actually crop it right from here so that I can crop from the left. I really want to crop from the right here. And now I have this, it's centered, but all I need to do is move it over to the right, and I can change that anchor. I always get myself into trouble doing things that I haven't done before, but you can see that there are things you can look at, and you can look around, and I'll show you how to find the help for different things in the program. I want just to move that over. I've got my anchor. I know. All right. And I know that this is going to be in here. I'm going to position this on the right. All right, so now it's back over to where I had it, and I have my logo in there. The text is, you know, it's got that basic Latin text, and I can send this, I can make any changes to it that I need to. When I save the document, I have some options. If I go to File, I can save it from here. You can just save it as it is, or I recommend that you often do a save as. By default, it's going to be an ODF text document, but you can actually save it as either a Word 2007 to 365 document or as a template. So if you're going to want to be able to use it again or share it with other people that you don't want them to be able to make changes to that, you can use that template saving. So I'm going to just call this a business letter. And I'll save that. You'll see this option for the dialog box to have the kind of formatting that you want, and you can turn this off if you want to, or you can just click through it when you go. So open ODF stands for Open Document Format, and it's very portable. So it can be used in a lot of different programs, open in a lot of different programs, and modified in a lot of different programs, and then saved. As opposed to working in Office, if you also work in Mac programs and you're used to working in Pages, where you can save a Pages file as an Office file, you can't do that from Word to, you can't save from Word to a Mac Pages file. But I've done some testing, and LibreOffice will open those Mac Pages files or those Mac Numbers files with no problem, and it converts them just as it would. Just as it will open an Office document. So it actually has more flexibility than the Office products do in that regard. Are there any questions about Writer so far? All right. You can see that just as we, we've been using, most of us have been using Office for such a long time that we take for granted, I think, our familiarity with it. So, there is some shift that we need to do if we want to, there's some shift we want to do with the new program, but generally speaking, it's pretty similar. I'm going to go ahead and I'll open from here. I'm going to open a spreadsheet document. And so I'll just go right to my open folder. And I have a spreadsheet of circulation reports. So I'm going to open that up, and we'll take a look at Calc. This was this was just an Excel file, and I opened it and then I saved it as a you can see it's still an XLSX file. If you do choose to save documents, and you might be working with older versions, it is a good idea to save them with the X designation, the 4-letter extension. It's a little more flexible, and it will actually convert in multiple programs more easily. But in Calc, just as there is in Writer, since I set up my tabs, I have those here in Calc: home, insert, layout, data, review, etc. I have the menu that matches the tab that I'm on, and it gives me those options in text. I also have this double arrow that gives me some commonly used options, or commonly used tools, so I can use that. There are a couple of things that are a little different about Calc, but it's the kind of thing where once you know them, you use them a few times, it's pretty easy to get used to that. One of them is that as with Excel, if I want to sort these if I want to sort by a column, I can click in any one cell in the column, and I have A to Z sorting button right here to sort in ascending order. Easy as pie. If I want to sort in descending order, I need to go to the double arrow, and it opens up a sort box that will allow me to add as many criteria as I want and to sort in either ascending or descending. You'll notice also that it automatically selects all of the table. So you don't have to worry about that. And if I choose here, I can, I can sort by descending order for my audiobook search, and I click OK. And it, it's now I've got that option all set up. I'm going to undo that because I want to show you something else. So I have this in descending order, and all of these, okay, so I lost my network connection. So I'm going to need to come back to this. I'm going to stop sharing my screen for a moment and bring it back while I get my screen back. I'm going to pause the recording and I'll share my screen. All right. Okay, so we're back in business here. And if you have comments or tips that you found that while you've been using this, you're welcome to share those. I think it would be really great. And it can help all of us out. So as I was saying, in Calc, excuse me, now that I'm back on track, you can actually use the A to Z sort here, descending sorts in your double arrows on the home tab. And I'm going to just really quickly take some of this data and copy it to another sheet, because I want to do a little bit, show you a couple of different things. I can open a new sheet here and paste that data in. One of the things I wanted to show you is that we're used to seeing auto sum right over here. And interestingly, they put really common functions right up here near the formula bar. So if I select the cell where I want to put my total and I click sum and hit enter, and I've got that right in there. So it works for any of the common things that you usually see in the in that auto sum function. You can do a count or a min max or an average. I think maybe oftentimes what we use the most is sum. And so you've got that option there. And you can also set up the function wizard is here. So if you need to do more complex functions, you can set those up right there as well. Okay, let me cancel that out. The other thing that has come up, and I've seen this as a question for spreadsheets in particular, is that if you wanted to, we'll talk a little bit about printing. So from the file menu, you have some options for printing. There are, you have an option to print directly to your printer, or you can do a print preview. And when you do the print preview, you can actually go to format the page. You can choose a style in the format. You can choose the paper, all that kind of stuff, where the page is coming from, all that good stuff. In the you've got all these different options here. You can set up your header, turn it on or off. Same with the footer. And if you go to the sheet menu or the sheet tab, excuse me, you can tell it which way you want it to print. If you want to print a whole page, you can use the scale and scaling mode option to fit the print range to the width and height. And that's going to give you the whole page, everything on one page. Sometimes that's can be really you know, it's something that you may use more often than you use in other programs. I'm going to close the print preview and we just come back. You'll also find those options for printing in the menu bar, obviously on the file menu. That's where you can actually get to those as well. They're going to be here in that file menu, or over here you may have some options to get to the print, but these are more overview, so those are not there. Sorry about that. The other option that if you're used to pivot tables, you can insert a pivot table just as you would in Excel. It's really similar. It's not exactly the same, but if you are used to doing this, you can actually pull things over. I want all the spending things here. And then you can go ahead and add the, and you can go ahead and get your pivot table up, and it opens it in a new tab by default. So if that's something that you work on, you'll be able to do that as well. All right. I'm going to go ahead and close out my spreadsheet, and I will save it. I'm going to save it with that Excel format again. And that brings me back to my business letter. I did want to mention one other thing here, and it's the same in all of the programs, but it is one thing that is a little different from the Office programs. And that is that if you are doing if you want to save as a PDF, it's not in the save as option, it's in the export option. So you can export this as an EPUB, as a PDF, as an HTML file, or in any of these different files. This is part of, it's one of those things that shows you the interoperability and the sort of web direction that these programs are set up to use. I'm going to go ahead, I'll save this as a PDF. And I have some options when I do that. I can accept those, you know, by default, I can accept those. You can actually set up your PDF that can actually be a fillable form. You can do that right in LibreOffice, and this interface will allow you to set up some of those things. When I export it, it's going to save it as a PDF wherever I choose to put that. But now I have that, and now I have that all set up. Okay, so one of the other things, I'm going to close my writer windows. And even though I have closed LibreOffice now, if I reopen it in this same session and I open another document, I'm going to go ahead and we'll take a look at some presentations. Even though I'm opening it again, it's because it's in the same session, it will save that tabbed display and that tabbed functionality for me. I chose a template here. I'm not sure how many of you use presentation software, you know, create PowerPoints. This works really similarly. I can right click on a slide and duplicate it so that it saves the formatting. I can insert any of the tables and charts, images or video. I can create text, and by default, in this particular template, their slides are already numbered, which I find helpful. You can, excuse me, you can also make changes to the template itself, and you can do that. You can set a background image in the layout, on the layout tab. There is the slideshow option where you can start from the first slide or from the current slide. It does allow you to actually rehearse timings. So if you have the full version of Microsoft Office and Microsoft PowerPoint, it will let you do that as well, to rehearse and to set up the presentation so that it will run in kiosk mode with your overlay. You can go ahead and have that happen so that you can create a packaged version that can start from anywhere, that you could just run anywhere. If you want to open, I've found that if I want to open a presentation that already exists, let me go ahead and open. The presentations that I've opened in Office Libre, or LibreOffice, excuse me, have really been, they've converted really pretty well. I haven't found that they are not, that they, you know, that they move things around very much. I'm going to move to a different, let me move to a different option here. Excuse me. Sorry about that. I'm not sure that I have my other presentation set up. Sorry about that. So I'm not sure if I can grab one of those and open it here to show you. But generally speaking, it will convert things. I haven't really found that it doesn't convert things. It will maintain a lot of the formatting of whatever template that I used in Word. There may be a few things that are moved around, and they're they may not display quite the same, but most of it does convert. I have used presentation software, actually slides, to create a lot of different documents that, like certificates and even one-page documents. I find it can be really helpful because I can add text boxes, move them around, add graphics, any of that kind of stuff. And I find it really helpful to just use presentation software rather than a drawing program or something like that. One of the other programs that is part of the suite is the Draw program. And I think this is the place where people have found some of the biggest issues. If you're I guess I kind of want to ask, how many of you are pretty heavy? I'm going to stop sharing for a second. All right, sorry about that. I wanted to make sure. How many of you are heavy Publisher users? I know at Lewisboro, I think you guys use Publisher a fair amount. Anybody else use Publisher? We have found that Publisher files, unfortunately, they are the ones that convert, have the most difficulty converting. And that's going to be true of any other program that you try to open Publisher files in. Publisher is kind of an interesting program. It is not one that Microsoft pays a lot of attention to. There is a new version of it. I think there's a 2019 version of it. It's not usually, it's always a separate add-on. And so if you want a new version of it so you can continue to use it, that would be something that you could add for your own location. But when I have opened, I have opened and worked with some of the files that a couple of you sent to me because I wanted to do some testing. I'm going to take a look at a couple of files that were sent to me. Let's see. I think I might have. All right. Oh, I put them in here. And now I can't find them. All right, so let me go ahead and open this up instead, and I'll reshare my screen. So if you use Publisher, you can use Draw. So we're in LibreOffice Draw now, and you can use LibreOffice Draw in much the same way. And starting from scratch it will work very easily. And it does a few pretty cool things that I haven't used in Publisher, although I'm not a heavy Publisher user. I do find that it's I think it's more flexible than the drawing program. If you're a Google Docs, Google Workspace advocate or user, it has a lot more functionality than the Draw program that you can use to embed things. So I had created this map here, and I can actually and I put this here, these little curved text options and the text, these little text boxes, and there's a whole lot of tools here, and there are things that you can add in. I'm going to start a new file here just so we can sort of see what some of the options are. You've got a toolbar down the side, and it will change depending. It stays largely the same because these are commonly used tools. Anything, just as with the other programs, you've got options on your different tabs. If I wanted to go ahead and insert something here, I can insert an image. I was going to put together a book group. There is my. All right, sorry about this. Nope, 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 no. All right, let me come back here. I lost track of my okay. Well, this doesn't, sorry about that. I had some, let me see if I put them right in that other file. Yeah, I sure did. So if I wanted to do like a flyer or a poster for a book group, I have a carousel here and some other graphics. I can actually add those in. So I'm going to start with a carousel, some popular titles from the catalog. All right, now that I'm a little bit discombobulated. As soon as I open, let me go ahead and I'll put I'll put one more of those images in. I have information from the book group, from the Burbio calendar that's on the WLS website. And you'll notice that as soon as I pop this in here, it moves it to the image tab so that I can start to work with that, with whatever it is I put in. And that's going to be the same for anything that I add to my document here. I'm going to go ahead and insert another. I wanted to show people that if we're doing a book group for this Daniel Silva book, that there are options. If maybe it's checked out, that particular book, there are other options on Hoopla and Overdrive. So I wanted to sort of give people some other options for where they might find the book to read it. So we're going to give you some options. It's interesting. Hoopla actually has trivia books, trivia about Daniel Silva books in particular. So I can arrange these and move this around. If I want to insert a text box, I can add one of those. Where's my text box? When I have, when I select this, there's lots of options for me to work with the text and move this around just like I would with a lot of the, with a publisher file or any of those kinds of things. I can, since this is now a text box, I can fill in the background with a color and have that. Well, maybe I can do that. It's not filling. Okay, let's see. Sorry about that. I'm doing it again. It's always interesting to try to do this when your people are when you have people watching. So I apologize for my my uncertainty here. So I am not filling this in. Let's try. I'm not seeing my fill tool. Sorry about that. There are some interesting options here. I'm going to go to the insert menu. If you are used to using some of the options in Office and actually in Word that allow you to do special fonts, those are here. It's called this font work option. And you can do curved text in a couple of different ways with different and I can change the text here. Can move that around so that it has so that I have and I can move that, excuse me, and resize it and make it big. And I want to change this so the text shows up on top, and I can just say read now. And if I make it bigger, I put in, sorry. I got an extra little, there we go. Keep doing that. All right, sorry. So I've got this and I can add that here. I can reformat this and move it around, put together my flyer, move this to back. Let me move it to the back. And I have some options here. This is an image, so it's not going to be clear. So I'm going to move it somewhere else so that I have a little bit more option. So I'm kind of goofing around here, but you get the idea that if this is already set up, or if you have a new document, it's really pretty easy to make a flyer or that kind of thing. What I have found is if you are converting files, if you open a publisher file in Draw, you may have to move some things around. There are sometimes artifacts behind that you don't see of formatting, that kind of thing. And those become apparent when you open the document in LibreOffice Draw in particular. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'll save this. I'm going to close it and save it. And I'm going to call this test. Now, when you choose the options here, you can save it as a template or as a drawing. It is not, so this, you don't have the option here to save this in a publisher format. You only have the option to save it as a drawing. If you want to, you can export it, and then you can export it in any one of these formats. So you can create graphics that you can post on the web, or you can actually even create GIFs or PDFs, as we saw earlier. All right, I'm going to come back here to my, oh, no, I'm not. All right, so let me go ahead and talk a little bit about LibreOffice Help. So there's a help menu here. It actually is not installed, so we just read the help online. There are some really helpful pieces of the online help. Might take a moment here to load. There we go. So the LibreOffice help is interesting because it will allow you to search all of the modules, but it brings up the help for whichever module you're using. If you use the index, say I want to learn about inserting, it will show me where it comes up in the module that I'm using, or in general in all of the programs where that appears. So if I want to, this brings up where inserting occurs in the help for calc or for charts, any of those kind of things. So it is really very comprehensive, and you can make connections if you don't find exactly what you need in the initial search, you may wind up finding it here in the global section. If you choose something that's a little bit more specific, like a pivot table, it may not, if it's too specific and it's not anywhere in this program, it will not pull it up. So you can actually limit it in that way. Once you choose the topic, the language that the documentation is written in is really clear. It is simple, and there are a lot of screenshots so that it'll help you to go through. And I've gotten a bunch of help from the help itself, and it's been very helpful. I will say that there are not, the video, I have not found good video help. If that's your usual format for how you like to get help, there are just a few tutorials, but most of the documentation is in text form. I'm going to come back to my PowerPoint or my presentation, and we'll just sort of review kind of some of the things that we have taken a look at. We looked at the different components, the things that are in all of the programs, all of the different modules. We looked at some of the navigation, how you can open and close different toolbars. One of the things I did not mention, and I'm looking at it now, is that there is on the side here, there is an option that has properties, page properties, some style information. There are a gallery of some different things you can put in there, the navigators here, or shapes. Most of these, some of these will be consistent across the programs, the page properties, the styles option, and then some are particular to whichever program you're using. This, for instance, shapes you'll see here in Draw, and you'll see some other options in Writer and in Calc. Okay. Most of the time, let me just come back here. Most of the time, you can actually hide this. And that I don't use it very much. Sometimes if I'm looking around for a particular tool, I'll open this up and take a look. But for the most part, it repeats what's in my tabbed toolbars or here on the side if I have a toolbar there. And that will actually, so I don't use that very much. We talked about printing and some of the options for printing. There are, as I said earlier, lots of ways, different ways to get to what you want to print. I either use the file menu or the file tab most of the time. Well, we talked about saving. You can, and so I gave you a list here of what you can save as and what you need to go to the export option for. I think maybe PDF is the one that you may use most often. This works actually more like a Mac program where you are exporting as a different kind of file. I didn't really talk about basic, we talked about templates, but Writer also has step-by-step wizards, and so does the Calc program. I have not found them to be particularly helpful. If you have, and somebody mentioned, we talked a little bit about mail merge earlier. If you have a lot of templates already set up and information already set up in the background for your LibreOffice program, the wizards are actually can be really helpful. But if you don't, And if you're using it in a VDI session, you won't be able to save that information, like who your organization is, who you are, those kinds of things. The wizards are actually less helpful. So it may be an option if you are using LibreOffice on your own computer, but for most of us and our purposes, it's not that great an option. I'll also mention here before I move on that there is an option to import. You can actually import all of your documents, and I don't recommend that you do that. It will actually ask you if you want to convert them all. This is particularly, and it's interesting, I don't see that option here in Draw. Let me go ahead and come back to a text document. And in the file menu, you have the option here. You have the option here. Why is it not opening? Okay, so in the wizards menu, you have these options to use wizards to create things, and you have something called a document converter. This is going to convert all of your documents that you choose, Word, PowerPoint Publisher, or Excel documents. You can convert all of them if you want to. I started to do this and then I stopped, because if I want to have them all be accessible to me in Office programs, say the Office 365 that we all have access to online, I'm going to leave them in that format. So I just kind of want to mention that so that you maybe don't have to try that out. It's been tried for you. We talked about calc, and I sort of wrote down a couple of the different paths to get to print an entire spreadsheet on one page. This is something that may be used really pretty often if you are printing, if you're downloading and printing your holds pick list. So you might want to be able to know how to do that here. We talked a little bit about pivot tables and how those work, and I did put a link to the LibreOffice pivot table help if you want more details about that. We talked a little bit about Impress and and just some of the options there. I also gave you a link to more draw help. The idea is that you can layer things and move them forward and backward as you would in Publisher or in some of the or in the drawing option in the Google Suites. You can also do that in Word. So this is the thing where you can do that in Draw. If you're converting existing files, this is how they're going to convert from Word to Writer, from Excel to Calc, from PowerPoint to Impress, and then Publisher. You can open those by default, they'll open in Draw. You may want to take, as I said earlier, if you print labels, you can open an Avery, download an Avery file and open it in Writer and then create the files that way. I have found that sometimes there are hidden text boxes in some of the more complex Publisher files. And so you can use the layers feature to move things forward and back so that you can unhide those and move them around. I mentioned earlier that there is a charts program. There's something called math to create formulas and equations. And then there's actually basic for macros and scripts. And then base for databases. I put links to help, the LibreOffice help for all of these. I think these are things that may, some of you who are power users may want to know that these are available. But for the majority of the users that we are, that are here today, these are things that we probably, we're not going to cover. We took a look at the Office of Libre Help, and I put links to those here about introducing it and customizing it and the general help. I also will mention that there is there's LibreOffice help on the IT Wiki, along with the other productivity software helps that are here. A lot of what is here is similar to what we worked with today. There's a link to an earlier training session, and there's a link to an earlier set of presentation slides. I have updated those, so you can, and I'll be replacing those after today's session. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to stop sharing my screen, and we'll come on back here. Are there any other questions or any questions? We have a few minutes left. Are there things that you, kinds of documents that you work on often? I know somebody said they create banners in Publisher, certainly something you can do in Draw, to, set the size of your document and then create that in Draw as well. Are there other kinds of documents that you work with that you'd like to maybe see how it works? If you use this for downloading reports from Evergreen, it's pretty seamless. So that's a really great example of how you might use it. I'm going to go ahead and let me get this, and I can show you, for those of you who haven't done that, I can show you how that works. Let me go ahead and minimize some of this stuff. Close it out. And I'm going to go to Evergreen, and I'm going to open Evergreen, and we'll take a look at that. Let me share my screen again. So if, for instance, I want to download my picks list, I can, or my pull list. I'm harkening back to an earlier age. Let me find another library here. I can print the full list here, but if I want to download it, I can go to my option here, download the CSV. And I can either, and if I click on it to open it, it's going to open right in LibreOffice. I do get a dialog box for importing, so I have some options there, as I would with a general CSV file or a text file. I can choose, what the separator options are, and I can choose if there are certain fields I don't want. But basically, I click through OK, and I have my list here. If I want to go ahead and print that, I can go to File and Print Preview. And I have that, and I'm going to go to the Format page so that I can make some changes there. I can put that, that's the grid lines that you mentioned earlier, Cindy. And then we'll have, let's see, what else do we want? We want to be able to get this all in one page. And I'm going to put it on a horizontal page. So I want that in landscape view. So if I click OK here, I've got that all in one page. I can change the margin so it's a little bigger. If I wanted to zoom in on that so you can see it a little better, I can, I've just, I've got that ready to go and ready to print in, a very short amount of time. You'll also find that it will work similarly if you, for instance, are downloading stat files from the IT Wiki. Those, if they're Excel files, those will open seamlessly as well for any of the different different files. Oops, sorry. That you might want to open there. Hoopla. Here we go. So if I have a file here that I want to open, I can just go ahead and open it, and it'll open in LibreOffice, and I'm good to go. Okay, so are there other kinds of files that, or options? I'm going to stop sharing, and I'm going to stop recording.